Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. In episode 6 of the podcast, I'm talking with Erica Jameson, the third generation owner and director of Jameson Ranch Camp in Glenville, California. Hi, Erica. It's Audrey. How are you?
I'm great, Audrey. How are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have the chance to talk to you today. So let's start. Why don't you first just tell us a little bit about yourself and your camp?
All right. My name is Erica Jameson. I am the third generation owner and director of Jameson Ranch Camp. I spend my off season in Ashland, Oregon, a lovely place that's, in the southern part of the state. But camp itself is in the Southern Sierras of California, so I relocate for 10 weeks every year. And our program is essentially a sustainable working ranch, and we bring kids onto the ranch and help them understand, what life living simply looks like. So we sleep outside under sleeping porches. We feed the cows in the morning. We grow a lot of our own food. And really help kids get outside, get away from technology, and learn what simple fun is. And that's a big part of what we do is that whole, hey, let's go play in the dirt. And all kids, all of our kids that come to us really seem to enjoy that. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I do know firsthand from my own daughter's experience there that it was just the time of her life. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. So just loved feeding the chickens and all the work that she did there. She enjoyed it so much. So love your program. So Erica, tell me, one of the things that I've been really researching and trying to find out more about is how people think camp has influenced their development as a person. So since you grew up at camp as a camper, what do you think are some of the things or ways that you were influenced by your own time at camp?
Well, that's such an awesome question. I love it. And it makes me think of so many different things. But something that I've been spending actually a little bit of time on recently is that by nature, I'm an introvert. I really like being, quiet. I love quiet spaces and books and sort of sitting, alone. And I am not that way at camp. And I never have been. I've always been very outgoing and, wanted to welcome campers and help people, find their way around. If people were into horses, that was like my thing. So I was totally happy to take kids to the barn and show them the horses and tell them all their names and all that kind of thing. And what it's really helped me do as an adult is step out of my comfort zone as regularly as necessary without that feeling of self-doubt that I'm going to do the wrong thing or that I should, wait for someone else to take over. I find that, in my growing up, I was exposed to so many different kinds of people and so many, kids who would come and, for lack of a better word, sort of invade my home. But it was amazing, to have all these people and to, really help them figure out what camp was and why it was so amazing. That's just really made my personality a lot more nuanced, I think, than it would if I had not grown up in that space. I feel like I have a sympathetic ear. I can empathize with a great many kinds of people, and I know how to talk to people from around the world, because these are people that routinely were in my space as a child. And, for running the risk of getting complicated here, it's made me a hope richer person and one who values friendships even across long distances, friendships that span decades, and the experience of knowing that you belong to a community. As a kid growing up, there's a lot of, identity crises that kind of go along with, with different ages and stages. And I never felt lost because I always had this grounding in, I am a Jameson. I am from camp. This is my purpose. This is my life. And that helped give me some stability in times when probably nothing else could have.
That's so beautiful. And what's interesting is, as you were talking, there are a couple of things that really stood out to me. One is, I've recently done some research on the whole introverts and sensitive people. I don't know if you've read some of that work, but there are a lot of people who, and I have one in my own family, who the world sometimes thinks they're kind of introverted and quiet. But once they get in a community or a place where they feel comfortable, people who know them well see a whole different side to them. And when you were describing yourself, I thought, oh my gosh, you fit that thing. So if you hadn't had the opportunity to be in this community and this environment where you felt so comfortable and like you belong and you could be yourself, you wouldn't have been able to kind of get out of your shell more and have all that expression. And you were describing perfectly what they say works best with kids who are more sensitive and introverted, that they need to get their feet wet, get comfortable first before they can really grow into themselves. Yeah,
absolutely. That sounds just about right to me.
And then the other thing is just when you were saying, I'm a Jameson, I belong here. I think your campers, even who don't have the last name Jameson, feel that same sense of belonging, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that there's always been a sense that, once you come to camp, you are an extended part of the Jameson family. And that's just been something that's really beautiful. It's giving me a whole trio of, I would call them probably cousins that, I can call on any time of the year and be like, hey, I'm in your city, I'm in your state. You want to get together and, have dinner or whatever. And it's whether they're 16 or 12 or 60, it's still, like getting together with aunts and uncles or cousins or whomever. And it's fantastic. It's a really wonderful thing to be a part of. And I appreciate it so much now.
Yeah, because I think, when you've grown up at camp like you have, and that has been your childhood and your experience, it's hard to realize that there's a lot of people out there who've never had the chance to experience anything like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know too many other kids who, had an influx of 200 plus people running around their front yard, every summer between June and August. That's definitely probably not a typical American childhood, I think.
Right. Oh, gosh, that's so good. So before, when we were talking, before we started recording the call, you talked about something that you feel is sort of one of your biggest aims at what you're trying to do at Jameson. And so let's talk about that. You were talking about how you want kids to feel a sense of purpose. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you do that at Jameson?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we do really well is provide kids with a sense of community and belonging. And that comes in a myriad of ways. So whether it's, helping in the morning, feeding the chickens, or, feeding the cattle, or, working in the garden so that we're going to, eat the food that we grow, there's a sense of purpose and contribution that comes every day. And one of the things that I really like is that even though some of those chores and the work crews that our older campers do are not particularly enjoyable in some ways, the camaraderie and the the fun that we build into it as a crew helps it become fun. So, you rarely see construction workers singing on the job, but if you come to camp and you watch us pour concrete, we're having a really good time. And that, that not only teaches kids that there is, a foundation, pardon the pun, to every structure and to the things that we build, but it also helps them understand that, everything has an origin. Everything has a place where it comes from, and things are built in stages. So whether it's, discovering where eggs come from, or figuring out that, we've taken this beef that was alive this morning and put it into its component parts by this afternoon, kids get the experience of really understanding where things come from and how that fits into their lives. And I think that gives them a sense of purpose, in that it helps them develop their ideas about who they are and what they want to be. Like, in rare occasions, we've had kids watch butchering and swear off meat for the rest of their lives. And like, you know what? I became a vegetarian because I watched a butchering, and I, realized that I didn't want to be part of that process. And I respect it, but that wasn't something I wanted to do. And for me, that's an incredibly informed decision. That's based on knowledge instead of, misinformation or disinformation, and that's good. So helping kids figure out, where things come from and how they get there, and giving them a group of people with which not only to discover these things, but to talk about and to, think about and get other opinions and inputs as to, do I like this? Do I not like this? What do I think about this? I think that really helps kids figure out. I talk a lot about, like, not only who you are, but how you are. Like, what kind of person are you? And I think our camp does a really good job in that sort of quest to understand what it is you want out of life and the kind of person you are trying to be.
Oh, I just love that. Not just who you are, but how you are. What a great way to think about it, and also to kind of teach kids as they're interacting with each other that is kind of what it comes down to, is how are you with other people? How are you being a friend? How are you helping in this community? There's so much there. That's amazing. I really, really like that. Well, what else do you have to share about, I know, you're parenting several kids. What are some things that you've done as a mom that you feel like you've learned from camp, like in the way you've raised kids? Just what are some practices or things that you've done that you learned back in, from your own parents, from your own camp days, that have been just kind of your positive parenting ideas that you've used with your family?
Sure. I think the biggest one is the setting of expectations. That was a big deal at both camp, it still is, and then in my family as well. As it was very clear exactly what was either going to happen, or what the boundaries were, or the structure of life. And so I think something that I do as a parent pretty well now is really set out the expectations no matter where we are. So whether that's as simple as my stepsons are 6 now, and 10, when we walk into a restaurant, I'll review restaurant behavior with them. So where does your napkin go? What are you supposed to do? What do we do with our bodies? That kind of thing. If you're feeling fidgety, what's acceptable? Those kinds of things. And so laying out that groundwork ahead of time, and then being able to add into that camp thing of being proactive, of looking at a situation and going, you know what? I'm not going to let this get to the next step. I'm going to cut this off now, which in some ways makes you an incredibly active parent, because you're consistently going, hey, hello, what's up? And trying to, put out the fires before they become actual fires. So I think those are two things. But the other thing that I found that was really useful with my child, my oldest child, who is now 19 and is in the early stages of transitioning from female to male, is being underwhelmed. In camp, there are all kinds of situations, and one of the things that is really important is maintaining calm when you are presented with something that could be a disaster. Mm-hmm. Because, as the leader, you don't have the luxury of panic. That's someone else's job. Yours is to deal with it and move in a decisive and active manner. So being underwhelmed allows me to sort of take everything in, go, okay, and then all right, well, that's new information. Thank you. And for the most part, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a human, so I've had good days and bad days with this. But when, huge announcements came down, like, hey, Mom and Dad, I think I'm gay, or hi, Mom, I think I'm a man, that was much easier to field because I was able to stay fairly underwhelmed and then sort of roll with it. It wasn't a crisis. It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't, alarming. It was certainly stunning in some ways, at least the second one. But, in terms of being, completely floored or, totally nonplussed, like I didn't get to that space because I had that mindset, like, all right, I'm going to be underwhelmed, whatever this announcement is.
Wow. You know what?
And that allowed...
That, Erica, I had never heard the term, use the term underwhelmed in that way. And it's amazing the way you describe it, because obviously none of us want to be overwhelmed, and our reaction to things makes the situation different. And so when you describe that, I was just like, this is like a miraculous discovery, just thinking about both as a parent and a camp director, maintaining a state of underwhelmed. So no matter what problem someone shows up with, to just be, I'm calm. I'm just going to listen. When you described that, I didn't actually, the first time you said the word, I didn't quite hear what you said when you said underwhelmed the first time. But then when you brought it back again, and you specifically said staying calm, not viewing things as a crisis or a disaster, that is really so wise and quite amazing for really any leader or parent in the way we approach things. Because obviously the thing that's out there or that's getting told to us isn't going to get better by us freaking out.
Right. Absolutely. And I found that, when I was younger, you can definitely get stories of this. I was very over the top when, things happened. Like, we actually called it like my dinosaur reaction, because I would roar like, "Raw!" and then I would, and then it took me, 20 minutes to get over it, and then I was over it. But what I found was that for that first 20 minutes, that was incredibly alienating for the people who were trying to come to me for a solution. And so they couldn't get one while I was in the midst of my own crisis. So that seemed counterproductive. So at this point, like I said, don't get me wrong, I have really good days with this, and then I have days where I'm like, wow, you could have worked on that a little better. But I strive really for that very even-keeled, like, okay, this is the deal. And I really try not to react strongly in either kind of way. Praise, don't get me wrong, we're all about praise. But, I don't get angry. I try not to get overly weepy, whatever it is. I'm definitely attempting to stay the rock, if you will, for whomever it is that needs my help. Because that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for me to, freak out and cry under my bed or run away or be overly angry. So, it's hard enough to come in and say, like, hey, the third field's on fire. Or, hey, we've got a kid who's really injured and I need your help. So, staying that calm not only allows me to continue my thought process, which is obviously lost in washes of huge emotion. So, getting that out, not having those allows me to assess the situation in a much more intelligent and rational way than reacting otherwise.
That's so amazing. It makes me want to really research more about the impact of adults' reactions to kids and how that changes the kids and how they learn to react to things. Because I'm sure it's like everything else. What they see modeled is what they learn to do. So if they have a calm parent or camp counselor who, when they come to with some kind of information that's maybe sort of negative, if the reaction is like promotes them talking more and a calm problem solving process. I'm sure that helps them develop their own ability to deal with hard things in a better way too.
Yeah, I think so. I think Paley, who's my oldest, I think Paley has had good successes in some situations with trying to model that same sort of, okay, yeah, we're going to deal with it. I mean, and granted, Paley is a different generation, so what's normal to Paley may not be the same thing as what, regular to me, but I think that they do a pretty good job of trying to handle things in that manner too.
It's so funny. I don't know if you remember one of the Michael Brandwine trainings that he used to say when someone came to you with a problem and they say like, I have a problem, that you're supposed to like smile and say, problems, I love problems. And it just kind of reminded me that like just how, you really can. And I think this also comes with experience, which you've had a lot now at camp and parenting. It just, you realize as time goes on that the problems are going to still be there regardless of how you react. So might as well like embrace them and kind of be calm and everything else. So, wow. I mean, okay, Erica, I'm learning so much from you that we're actually going to need to talk again because we've already gone over 20 minutes. So we're going to have to schedule another call. But I want to thank you so much for coming on today and talking to me. This has just been amazing. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Happy to help.
I really enjoyed talking with Erica for this episode of the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed listening as well. For notes from our conversation, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode number 6. I'll leave you with a quote that I was reminded of while talking with Erica. It's from L.R. Nost. Yelling silences your message. Speak quietly so your children can hear your words instead of just your voice.